often these Primad Bani prayers, Jaya Vishnu Prams, etc., we say ISKCON founder Acharya. So there is Acharyas. Acharya is a person who teaches by his example, and founder Acharya is a special Acharya who, besides teaching with his example, he starts, or how do you say, revives philosophical or spiritual tradition. So we call this day Srila Prabhupada's Vyasapuja. So who is Vyasadeva? There is a saying in Vaishnava circles, Vyasa is right, Vyasa is guru. Or sometimes the opposite, Vyasa is guru, Vyasa is right. Srila Vyasadeva is an incarnation of Krishna, actually. He is called sometimes the literary incarnation of Krishna. And actually the name Vyasa means to divide. Vyasadeva. And why he is called Vyasadeva? It is because the Vedas originally were, first of all, they were very extensive, much more than they are today. And then they were in one body. There was one body, the Vedas. And Srila Vyasadeva, this was approximately 5,000 years ago, he divided the Vedas into 4 Vedas, first of all. And then he asked his disciples to write commentaries. It's not exactly that they wrote, he dictated them to them. In those days, it is said that people had such good memory so that there was no books. There was no books because people heard somebody recite one book once and they would remember it forever. Very practical. You never have to study. For those who go to school, you remember everything you heard just once. So approximately 5,000 years ago, Srila Vyasadeva and the other sages, they start to see that our memory is becoming worse. Fortunately, they are not here today. I think our memory has got much, much worse in 5,000 years. But they saw it's becoming worse, so they decided maybe better we put this knowledge in a book form. I don't know if they call them books, but in those days they wrote on palm leaves, actually. On palm leaves they wrote. So he chose his different disciples, and all these disciples, they compiled the Vedic literatures, which are comprised of many things. There is 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Atharva, and Samaveda. But then there is many Upanishads. There is 108 Upanishads. There is Samhitas, which are, Samhitas means stories or compilations. And there is many more. The Vedic body of knowledge, I think, I don't know if you can, maybe you can read it in one lifetime, but to learn it in one lifetime, I think it's difficult, the whole body. So, in the end of all of this, Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote something which is called the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta, so Veda, Anta. Anta is like in English, end. Också på svenska, ända, slutet. Så, så att säga den, I'm switching off to Swedish. So the essence of the Vedas, he meant with this Vedanta Sutra, he wanted to compile, because there is so many, the Vedas are not uniform in one sense. The Vedas, some part of the Vedas say one should worship the demigods. Why should one worship the demigods? Because it's good to understand, for us to understand, instead of being an atheist, it's better to understand that there is some entity in control of everything. And you find this many ancient religions, like even here in Scandinavia, they worship the demigods of the weather and the wind and the thunder. And this is not discouraged in the Vedas, but this is not, so to say, the topmost knowledge, but some people will be happy with this. So anyway, I compiled this Vedanta Sutra, the essence of the Vedas. So Srila Vyasadeva is very important. And we call this day the appearance of, in general, in the appearance of our own spiritual master, and in this case of Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya, we call it Vyasapuja. So we're actually worshipping Vyasa. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada, one of his biggest legacies, it was his books. He wrote altogether around 90 books. These books, they are very, very thoroughly and very detailed, written in great detail. And in these books, it is explained how to become a devotee. In general, it's not easy to become a devotee because we are born in this world due to having some kind of material desires, and one of the most difficult things in life is to change our desires. We can try and work, but these desires keep coming back. It's desires sit very deep, because the desires are the emanation of the energy of the soul. So it's like the deepest things we have. The deepest form of energy from the soul is the desire. So it's difficult to change the desire. But Krishna, being very kind to us, he gave us he sent his dear devotees in order to teach us how to get out of this material world. Sometimes things may seem very difficult, but when you see an expert, somehow everything becomes easy. Mm-hmm. I can give just a stupid example. When I was younger, I used to play tennis, and I didn't play so good because I didn't want to run after the ball and so on. Anyway, so one teacher there in this tennis club, he told me, you know how you learn? You look at videos of world masters in tennis, of champions in tennis. So I did that, and after that I became really good. I beat everybody. Just because one sees how they move and everything. So in devotional service, it's a little bit the same thing. We choose a spiritual master, and we see how that person serves Krishna, and by seeing that, first of all, we learn, but we also become inspired. The main function of the spiritual master is to inspire us with the ecstasy of devotional service, with the bliss of devotional service. Because actually, maybe we don't understand, or we never came in contact with the devotional service, and we think that the nectar is here in this material world. But by accepting the spiritual master and his instructions, then our life will be changed, our desire will be changed. So Srila Prabhupada, he left a legacy of many of all these books, all these literatures. Very simple books. There's like the Ishopanishad, there is the Nectar of Instruction. There is one book which is called Easy Journey to Other Planets. There is another one called Beyond Birth and Death. So there's many these small books which we actually distribute a lot to people when they start to become interested. then there is like the ABC of spiritual life, which Srila Prabhupada translated. He translated one of the essential books, which is called the A of spiritual life, like in ABC. It's Bhagavad Gita. I actually became interested in Krishna consciousness by receiving a Bhagavad Gita. I had a friend who was he was an artist, and he was doing different things every month. 1 month he was painting cartoons, the next month he was doing sculpture, the next month he was studying some esoteric Tibetan thing. Anyway, he was a very creative person. And one of his periods was he went into the Hare Krishna temple, and he became very interested in Krishna consciousness. He's still interested today, even if this was 50 years ago. But after one or 2 months, this interest disappeared, and he stopped going to the temple, and they gave me all his books. So I just remember he gave me the Bhagavad Gita, and I used to read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita every evening, and then I put it in a cloth, and I put it under my pillow. I don't know why I did this, because this is something which children do. Like you get goodies and you put under the pillow so nobody will take. But anyway, somehow it was not.
It worked.
Maybe the Bhagavad Gita emanated during the night also, but anyway, it was there, it was safe, and then I woke up in the morning, I read a little bit. He gave me also his beads, and started to chant. But this Bhagavad Gita was very important. It was very, because when I started to read Bhagavad Gita, everything started to make sense. Before, I was trying to understand spiritual philosophy, but many of these books about Hinduism and Indian philosophy, they are written by Christians. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean they want to degrade Indian philosophy, but sometimes they don't grasp the essence of Indian philosophy, most of the times. So you see, everything is one, everything is nothing, you are everything, you are nothing, you are eternal, you never existed, all the whole spectrum between nothingness and you are the universe. So it was very, very kind of sweet and liberating to read Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada explains the essence of the Bhagavad Gita in such a way, like sometimes we'll read the translations of one verse, and in Sanskrit it's just a few words, but actually Srila Prabhupada writes very, very long sentences. I don't know if any of you have seen a movie which is called Lost in Translation. You have seen it? Mm-hmm. For those who have not seen, I can say there is one girl who goes to Japan and translates for a businessman. And sometimes the Japanese, they would say like one word, and she would say, like 5 minutes. And sometimes they spoke a lot and said, they say no. And they said they spoke like for 10 minutes. They said, they're not interested. So sometimes when we read Srila Prabhupada's books, it's a little bit like that, because he wants to help us to understand. Sanskrit is a difficult language, and it's very intricate how things are connected. It's a little bit like Russian. You have the endings of the words which place, which change the meaning of the word, that's called cases. So Srila Prabhupada very expertly translated these books, and he actually, his foremost advice, and maybe the best way for us, or one of the best ways, there is no best way, one of the best ways for us to worship Srila Prabhupada and to offer him respect and at the same time elevate ourselves spiritually is to read Srila Prabhupada's books. If one can read between 1 and 2 hours every day, one who will make enormous, quick advancement in devotional service. I can write a guarantee, you know. How much? 2 years guarantee? If you read Srila Prabhupada's books between 1 and 2 hours every day, within 2-3 years you'll be an advanced devotee. So such is the power of these books. I actually have, you know, we all in spiritual life, we all have ups and downs, isn't it? Sometimes we're very enthusiastic, sometimes you just think, leave me alone. I don't want to see anybody, I don't want to do anything. So when I have this thing, when I don't feel enthusiastic, I take, you know, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of the books of Srila Prabhupada, and I just read loud for myself. After 15 minutes, everything is back, as it should be. So one of the first and main books which Srila Prabhupada translated, this is the Bhagavad Gita. And this is called the A of the spiritual life. And this is one of the books you should start with, together with the Sri Ishopanishad. Sri Ishopanishad is very basic, but at the same time very deep, if you can understand what is in there. It's a very short book. It's like 18 mantras plus invocation. It's not 19 small mantras, but it's very deep. And one of Srila Prabhupada's genius, it's in this very early translation of the Sri Ishopanishad. There is this invocation of Ishopanishad, which is in Sanskrit, I will say this, it's Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Evavasishite. It's like 10 times Purnam with different cases in the end. So Srila Prabhupada very expertly translates this verse in a very long English sentence. He says that everything within the universe, the Lord is complete, and everything which is existing in the universe, which is created by Him, it's also complete. And like Srila Prabhupada gives the example, like the living entities. Supreme Lord creates, for instance, human beings, but after He has created, they are complete, so they can continue to exist by reproducing. So, this is the beginning stage of studying Srila Prabhupada's books. The next stage is after one has understood Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita, I mean, I have been in ISKCON 48 years. So I've read Bhagavad Gita maybe 8 times, 10 times. Every time I open Bhagavad Gita, there is something which I never saw before. I said, I mean, oh my God, I read the 3rd chapter 10 times. I didn't know this was here. And I'm telling you the truth. And this is because what is in Srila Prabhupada's books, it's in one sense a little bit mystical. So you're reading, but at the same time, because I mean, you are interacting with the instructions of Krishna. So on a very deep level, it happens transformation. So sometimes you are not ready to see some things, and you don't see them. You just pass by. Even if you read them, they don't touch you. But then when one makes a little bit more advancement, then one will be able to understand. So actually one can read Bhagavad Gita, I think, unlimited times, and there will be always something new. But Bhagavad Gita, without the purports of Srila Prabhupada, it's very difficult to understand. You can just go to another edition, and there is like many commentaries, they just speculate, like Bhagavad Gita is, the story of Bhagavad Gita is about a war, the Kurukshetra war, and there are some devotees of Krishna are called the Pandavas, 5 Pandavas. And they take part in this war. And this is not only explained in Bhagavad Gita, it's explained in Mahabharata, another part of the Vedas. It's called Mahabharata, it's actually called the 5th Veda. And it's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita. But still, some commentators, they say there is no Pandavas. These are the 5 senses. Anyway, so there are many speculations. One of the wonderful things with Srila Prabhupada did, and which is actually the most important characteristic of a spiritual master, is that he did not change anything. When Srila Prabhupada was translated Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and which I'm going to mention afterwards, Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was using a very thick book. I mean, quite big in size, and I mean, quite thick. And in this book, there was the commentaries of all the Vaishnava Acharyas, the previous Acharyas. And Srila Prabhupada looked at these commentaries, and because he was preaching in the West, he knew a little bit our mentality, he knew the time and circumstances, and therefore he took from these purports from the other Acharyas. There is Sridhara Swami, there is Baladeva Vidhi Bhushana, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. There is all these commentaries, and they are all in one book, which I guess, I've never seen it. I have seen pictures of Prabhupada translating that, but I think it's in Sanskrit. For sure not in English. So Srila Prabhupada was translating this, and when doing that, he was taking inspiration from the previous Acharyas. So therefore, what he's teaching us is not just his opinion or something fabricated, but it's ultimately coming from the words of Krishna, from the instructions of Krishna. Like if you look at Christianity, I don't know if somebody ever made a counting, but I mean, I would say, I don't know, 10,000 different sects within Christianity. There's Methodists, there is Adventists, there is Evangelists, there is Lestadiana. I mean, there is, I'm speculating, but I think, if I'm humble, I think at least 10,000. And why is that? Because they have the Bible, which Srila Prabhupada said is actually a bona fide literature. It's an accepted literature as the instructions of God. But everybody interprets the Bible as they like. And that creates a problem because, you know, it's the interpretations, if you don't have a direction, they become unlimited. You know, like just this verse which I just said, Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purname Bhavasijate. Probably there is 100 ways to translate it. But if you understand what the person is saying, you know what Krishna actually meant by this. When how do you say? When instructing us with this verse, then one can make a proper commentary. And this is actually what I found very wonderful in Srila Prabhupada's books, that these comments one can understand by putting them into practice and by analyzing them logically and philosophically, that these instructions are very deep and they can help us in spiritual life. So that after Bhagavad Gita, there is the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is an enormous, I don't know if we have anyone here. Yeah, it's there on the shelf.
Yeah.
Which is like 12 different cantos. And each canto has many books. It's how many verses about Srimad Bhagavatam? 180,000? No.
40,000.
40,000.
Yeah.
This was the short version.
No, I think 40.
40?
Yeah.
It's quite a lot still. So it's many verses. And it's 12 volumes. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives a more detailed, how shall we say, a more detailed knowledge of the philosophy. Actually, of all the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, Srila Prabhupada, when he was translating it, he said that he put almost everything in the first canto because he didn't know how long he will live. So better safe than sorry. So if one reads the first canto, that's already an amazing amount of knowledge there. And then there is I think all of you who sit here, they know a little bit about our tradition. So then there is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's like, Srila Prabhupada calls it like the university studies. You have basic school, Bhagavad Gita, you have gymnasium, Srimad Bhagavatam, and then you have university, which is Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Chaitanya Charitamrita deals with very intimate topics, but it deals also with the advanced stages of love of Godhead and how we should attain them. So all these literatures, they are wonderful. And I think the best way, or one of the best ways to worship Srila Prabhupada is to really dive into these literatures, to study them, and to make them a part of our life. Maybe we cannot read 2 hours a day, but like 15 minutes a day, everybody can read, or everybody can read at least one Bhagavad Gita verse every morning. We actually have a calendar which is published by ISKCON, and every day of the year it's one Bhagavad Gita verse. So one can read this verse and then go to the Bhagavad Gita and read the purport. This will enrich us spiritually. And what means spiritual enrichment? Spiritual enrichment means we more and more understand our position as servants of Krishna. In this book which I mentioned, this last one, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a little verse. Chaitanya Charitamrita is written in Bengali, the original. How is this? Krishnera? No. Jivera Svarupoy, Krishnera Nityadas. Thank you. So, it's easier for those who know Bengali. So, the constitutional position of the living entity is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. So, by trying to understand, reading and studying these books, we can come to this knowledge. So this was like a little bit regarding Srila Prabhupada's books, which is his great gift for humanity for a long period of time ahead. Actually, we were having an interesting discussion yesterday and today, because nowadays the physical books are disappearing, and everybody's getting e-books and what more, AI books. Not yet, but there is all this. But what is so special with the printed book? I mean, first of all, actually, when in the beginning of the movement, when we were distributing books on the street, Srila Prabhupada said we could offer prasadam to the books. Because you're traveling in a van from place to place. Sometime later we got an altar, but he said you can offer to the books. Why? Because these books are the words of Krishna. And on the spiritual platform, Krishna and his name are non-different. Krishna and his words are non-different. So, if you don't have an altar at home, you can offer Bhoga to the books, to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. It's bona fide what I'm saying. So these books are like deities. So, because I don't know, the electronic media is a little bit more flowing, you know, and it's very easy to change. You know, you can go on a file and say replace Krishna with Shiva, and you have you have a completely different book. Very easily done. But the printed book, it has a special, how do you say, special significance. And one thing which is interesting, in spite of all the electronic media in the world, the sales of books are increasing all the time, which is a little, maybe people don't read them, but the sales of books are enormous, you know, everywhere. It's not they are decreasing. Everybody thought they would decrease, but not yet. And maybe they will never do, because a physical book is something special. You can carry with you, you can, you know, whenever it's needed, you can go back, you can read, you can find things. It's very, very strong presence. So these books of Srila Prabhupada are very important. If you don't have, or if you're not reading any of these books, I encourage everybody. I think they have all the books here. And I would encourage everybody to start somewhere and start studying these books. You're already in the path of devotional service, so really appreciate them. It's not like my father. I gave Bhagavad Gita to my father, and maybe after 1 month I asked him how it is, and said, I mean, I read the first page, but they're all the same. It's all about Krishna, 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 Krishna everywhere. You should serve Krishna, so I don't have to read anymore. My father was very, very intelligent. One of these. So he read first 10 pages and said, okay, surrender to Krishna, serve Krishna, Krishna is supreme. He said, I don't need to read anymore. Then I wanted to also, because on this day we are praising Srila Prabhupada, I wanted to mention a little bit, I don't know how much all of you know, probably some of the things I'm going to say about Srila Prabhupada's life you already know, but I want to say a little bit, you know, about Srila Prabhupada's life. And I wanted to, you know, I actually, it is funny, you know. I went to ChatGPT and I wrote, I would like to give a lecture about Srila Prabhupada, which should last about 45 minutes, and I would like to focus on his struggle before he started ISKCON, on his humility, and finally on his success in creating the Hare Krishna movement. So they gave me 25 pages. Unfortunately, I could not read them because I just printed this morning. So, but anyway, so these three things.
Was it any good?
Sorry, yeah, they are okay, very good. You know, they are learning, they're correcting, and the devotees are very active on the internet, so they will find everything. So. So actually, you know, they gave a little bit suggestions. So, I mean, one thing which is kind of a little bit interesting, and this was not from ChatGPT, it's that there is a statement in 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in 9th chapter, which says that when Krishna is satisfied with the service, with devotional service of his devotee, then he does everything himself. I will say it again. So when Krishna is satisfied with devotional service of his devotee, he does everything himself. This is actually written in the 10th canto in connection with Mother Yashoda binding Krishna. So Mother Yashoda tried to bind Krishna with ropes, and all the ropes were always too short. But then after some time, Krishna was satisfied with her endeavor to bind him. So Krishna let him bind him. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains this, that when Krishna is satisfied with the devotional service of his devotee, then he does everything himself. So this means a little bit that, when we endeavor properly and we have the proper intention, then Krishna just will help us, so that whatever we want to do for him will be successful. And of course, I thought this in relationship with Srila Prabhupada. He started in such a humble way. The modern Krishna conscious movement, the Hare Krishna movement, started actually with Srila Prabhupada. There's all kinds of difficulties first, and I will actually mention this. What the AI calls the struggle. But it started with Srila Prabhupada. He tried, when he was in New York, he tried in different ways. He went to Divine Light Society to give a lecture, and there was just old ladies and Mayavadis. So it was not so rewarding. And he went to different places. He was invited to yoga clubs and etc. But when nothing of this was giving result, then he actually took his kartals and he went to a park. If you ever go to New York, you should go there. How is it called?
Tompkins Square Park.
Tompkins Square Park, yeah, is on the 2nd Avenue, a bit lower down towards the Bowery. So Srila Prabhupada just took kartals and he started to chant. And New York in those days, the 60s and the 70s, for those of us who lived at those days, it was a very special time, because young people start to question if to make career and collect money, and become an established, rich person, if this is actually the goal of life. And many young people travel to India, to find a guru and to engage in spiritual life. Of course, there was total confusion, because in those days people thought that drugs are spiritual. LSD, especially LSD, is spiritual.
Even now they do that.
Where it'll bring you?
No, they think.
They still think. They still have LSD?
Well, there's a million more, but they still think it's something spiritual.
Yeah. And there is certain aspects in Hinduism where people use certain drugs, at least marijuana, Shiva worshippers. I went once to the Yamuna. It was like a cloud of marijuana, Shiva temple. So anyway, but this may make one feel disconnected from the material world, and think, this pressure from the madness of this material world is gone, but it doesn't last. So anyway, so Srila Prabhupada was in this Tompkins Square Park, and these people who belong to the, I would call it, beatnik and hippie generation, they started to come, and they started to sit around him, and from there the modern Hare Krishna movement, ISKCON movement, developed. And this is because of this reason that I was saying. When Krishna is satisfied with one's devotional service, he does everything himself. Because sometimes we try to manage one temple, and it's almost impossible. I can tell this, I've been temple president like 45 years. Very difficult. And Srila Prabhupada created 100 temples. And they were all more or less working. So when he left in 1977, there was about 100 ISKCON temples. So Srila Prabhupada, now we go a little bit into the history. I don't know how much time I have for Javati. It's 5:30. So Srila Prabhupada was actually born in 1896. So a few years before 1900, 4 years before, in Calcutta. And he was born in a Vaishnava family. His father was a devotee. He had some small business. I think he was a cloth merchant. But this business was just something by the side. His real interest was worshipping Krishna, morning and evening. So he had deities and they have full puja. And one of his prayers, he was praying to Srimati Radharani that his son, whose initial name was Abhay Charan, would become a devotee. So Srila Prabhupada grew up in this atmosphere of devotional service, and from a very early age he showed tendencies to perform service. Like with other children, they would make different plays of things Srila Prabhupada has heard from his father or from their reading at home. They would make small plays. There is one interesting episode when Srila Prabhupada made a little Ratha Yatra with the children in the neighborhood. And what happened in this Ratha Yatra is that all the children of the neighborhood joined. It was really a special event, and the neighbors were. So in those days, it was already noticeable that there was a deep devotion in Srila Prabhupada. So this being said, like sometimes we think, he's a pure devotee, everything is very easy for him. We have to struggle, we are so conditioned, we have so many difficulties, but he's a pure devotee, everything is automatic. It isn't so. Pure devotees have also to endeavor, and this endeavor is part of us, of actually Krishna testing our sincerity. How much are we ready to endeavor? So Srila Prabhupada, he was searching for some spiritual guidance, and in 1922, so he was 26 years old, he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for the first time. This early 1922, 30, 40, this was very agitated years in India because it was the independence, the British. I don't know how shall I call them. They were just harassing everybody and destroying Indian culture and exploiting the country's resources and whatever. There is movies about that. You can look. So many people in India, especially thinking people, intellectual people, they were thinking, we must change this. So Srila Prabhupada was a little bit in these circles, revolutionary people. But ultimately, he had a spiritual interest. So one day, one of his friends said, there is a sadhu here who has a nice temple, and why don't you come and listen to him? And actually Srila Prabhupada's first reaction was, what's the use of listening to somebody who are just oppressed people? We cannot choose anybody. We are governed by the Queen of England, and the Brits take everything. We should actually, but come, he said, okay. So Srila Prabhupada went, and he brought him to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who would later become his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami, who was also a revolutionary teacher in our tradition. He introduced, many forgotten practices back into Vaishnavism. So he went to listen to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was speaking, And right on the first meeting, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta points to Srila Prabhupada and says, why you speak the English language, why don't you preach to the English people, to the English-speaking people? Because Srila Prabhupada had gone to I think it was Jesuit school, no? Anyway, to a Christian.
Scottish Church.
Scottish church. That's probably Lutheran or something. No?
Mm.
But anyway, Christian.
Scottish.
Protestant.
Sorry?
Protestants. Protestants.
Yeah, Protestants, yeah. Some part, some sect, Protestant sect. So anyway, they were Christian. So he was taught in English. So he was fluent in English language. And somehow, I don't know if Srila Bhaktisiddhanta heard him speaking English or just by his transcendental inspiration, he said, Prabhupada, come on, you know, how shall I do this? But Srila Prabhupada was so touched by the meeting with his spiritual master, so during the next years, he just meditated on this. How can I spread Krishna consciousness? Because Krishna consciousness is such a wonderful and deep philosophy. Actually, there is even modern philosophers. There is one philosopher in the University of Chicago, and he says that Srila Jiva Goswami is the greatest philosopher which ever existed. I mean, this comes from a person who is not. I don't know, maybe he's a devotee, but he's not in devotional circles. But he said Srila Jiva Goswami is the greatest philosopher which ever existed. So this philosophy is very deep, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was begging Srila Prabhupada, why don't you preach this philosophy in the English language? And Prabhupada actually started immediately. Of course, he had his life. He had a family. I don't know exactly the details. He had a few children, I guess. You probably know better than me. You know?
Who?
How many children did Srila Prabhupada have? 5?
No.
He had a few children. When you say a few, you're never wrong. Because it can be any number. So he started to meditate on that. He started to deeply study the scriptures. He started to attend lectures of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and read books of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And a few years later, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta actually, he made a huge revolution in the Vaishnavism in India. And he organized parikramas. He had the Vrindavana parikram, which has like 60,000 people. Sometimes we think that the Indians are not organized, but when they organize a parikrama, you've never seen something like that. It's fantastic. Cooking, tents, water, everything is there. I have experienced myself, so it's a fantastic organization. Maybe they don't like to organize factories, and but parikrama is fantastic. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had this Vrajamandala parikram. This is a pilgrimage where you go through all the holy places in Vrindavana by foot, and in every place you discuss what happened there, what did Krishna do there, Radharani did there, and cowherd boys. Very wonderful. So Srila Prabhupada went there to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and then he got initiated. I don't know if he got initiated there, but in connection with that period, he got initiated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And then he continued his preparation for many decades, actually. And there is even an incident which was quite frustrating for Srila Prabhupada, because he started to translate the Bhagavad Gita. And this was during the Second World War, so the paper in India was rationed. That means you could not buy paper. It was very difficult, and only certain people could buy paper. So he was translating the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. And then one day he came home, and his wife had sold the paper even with writing on one side and empty papers. She had sold everything without asking him. So he was completely, you can imagine, I mean, it's like your hard disk collapses in modern terms. So,
Why did she do that?
sorry?
They were shorting food.
I don't know.
I don't think that
She
she
needed-
got she wants to
She
buy
bought
cookies.
tea
That's
and
what they say in
cookies.
the,
Yeah.
I mean, she probably didn't understand the endeavor and the value of this. So anyway, so this was a kind of a great setback, you know. Srila Prabhupada was, oh my God, all this work gone, you know. Exactly like if you lose everything you have in your hard disk, all the letters, everything. So everything was collected there. And then later, around 1950, his children have left home already, or were about to leave home. You know, they were grown up. So Srila Prabhupada decided to take Vanaprastha. And he took Vanaprastha in 1950. So he separated from basically from his wife. And the tradition in India is normally then when one takes sannyasi or Vanaprastha, the eldest son takes care of the mother. It's not like, you know, you take sannyas and you just forget about your wife and you know, she's just without money, without protection or anything. No, the wife is left in charge of the eldest son. This is the Vedic system, so that she is protected and supported by the family. So Srila Prabhupada went to Vrindavana, and somehow, by Krishna's arrangement, he got a room in the Radha Damodar temple. If you ever been to Radha Damodar temple, who has been in Radha Damodar temple? Oh, almost everybody. So you can understand me. So the Radha Damodar temple, it's a very, very special place. It's Hare Krishna. It's a very powerful place. The samadhis of Jiva Goswami, and I think Rupa Goswami also are there, and Jiva Goswami, they are there. So Srila Prabhupada rented a little room there in the temple. He was also maybe doing something for the temple. But from his room, I mean, his room was very small. Maybe two times
Like
5
this
meters.
one. Like this one.
2 times 5 meters or something like that. It's very small. But from the window, when you open the window, you see Jiva Goswami's.
Rupa Goswami's.
Rupa.
Rupa Goswami's
No,
Samadhi.
Jiva Goswami's.
No, from his room, Rupa Goswami's Samadhi.
Only Rupa Goswami.
Yeah,
Through the window.
yeah.
And Jiva Goswami is behind.
Yeah, other side.
Okay.
On the temple.
Sorry. Fortunately, we have Shyama. The law. So, I mean, both Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami, they were philosophers, and they compiled all the Vaishnava philosophy, and they compiled many, many books. They wrote many books, philosophical books, extensive, deeply philosophical books. So Srila Prabhupada was, while looking at the samadhi of these greatest of all Vaishnavas, he became, increasingly inspired somehow. It's a very, very transcendental place, this Radha Damodar temple with these samadhis. It's very, very special because these are the devotees who, after Lord Chaitanya, they put down all the philosophy, which is not so easy all the times. They wrote down and they analyzed like Srila Jiva Goswami. He systematized all the Vaishnava philosophy. Especially there is a set of books which is called Shat Sandarbha, 6 Sandarbhas. And in these Sandarbhas, One is called Tattva Sandarbha. He explains how shall we find the truth, which procedure should we find the truth. And he comes to the conclusion by hearing, actually. It's the best process to find the truth. And there is Paramatma Sandarbha. He explains how the Paramatma is present everywhere. Krishna Sandarbha, all the qualities of Krishna and why Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's Priti Sandarbha. I'm missing one now. Bhagavat Sandarbha. Bhagavat Sandarbha analyzes the qualities of the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada was contemplating, and meanwhile he was writing books. And around that time, he started one magazine which is called Back to Godhead. Back to Godhead magazine. And he tried to distribute this magazine in he would travel to Delhi, and he would try to distribute this magazine. And the temperatures in Delhi, I think I have seen like 55 degrees. So Srila Prabhupada used to, first of all, he was very poor, he had actually nothing. I don't know how he survived, of course, by Krishna's mercy, but I don't know practically what was happening, how he could get something to eat. And anyway, but he collected some money, and he went and sold this Back to Godheads. And we all have been on Sankirtan, and we see that many people are not interested. They say, "Oh no, I have my own life, give me alone. No, India has to become independent, this is just religion, So already in those days, he thought it was very difficult to distribute it back to Godheads. But he continued. He published different back to Godheads. He wrote all the articles. He sold them. And then gradually, at one point, he also started to translate the Bhagavatam. So he translated the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam in India. And this was quite complicated also to do, because in those days, I don't know how much all of you know about printing, but in the old days there was a typesetting machine. So you write, and these things are connected with wires to different letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And when you type, a certain letter falls down, and then in the end you have a page in lead. Then you put that together, you glue it together, tie it together, and then to print. Anyway, basically it was like that. So very complicated and cumbersome. And then you have to print different hefta, and then you put them together in the book. And Srila Prabhupada went through an enormous struggle to do this. He had to rent a rickshaw to drive from the paper mill to the printer. He had to rent another rickshaw to go from the printer to the binder, and then you would pick up his books, and he had to make an agreement how to pay for them with the binder. So enormous struggle, single-handed, actually. It shows an enormous strength and dedication. And this was going on for decades, not for 1 or 2 years, for decades. So it's wonderful what Srila Prabhupada did. Then in, I hope I got this date right, I think it's 1965, Srila Prabhupada finally, Srila Prabhupada thought that he was ready. At least he had Bhagavad Gita, he had Srimad Bhagavatam translated. So now it's time to fulfill the order of my spiritual master. And here is again this sentence: when Krishna is satisfied with one's devotional service, he does everything himself. Srila Prabhupada did not know that in New York there was a huge movement against capitalistic culture, capitalistic and other things, imperialistic and materialistic. There was this, so many young people were rebelling against present culture, and they were looking some kind of meaning in life. Srila Prabhupada didn't know that this was going on. But somehow Krishna inspired him. Okay, now it's the time. Because if he had gone to America before, it would have been much more difficult, because this movement was not going on, and there wouldn't be all these people breaking out from society and trying to do something different from what their parents have done. So people were very much, America, they were very much into money and career and control, power, everything. So this hippie movement, actually there is one funny interview of Srila Prabhupada. One reporter asks him, "Are your disciples hippies?" Prabhupada says, "No, they are happies." It's kind of a funny story. But before they were hippies, and Srila Prabhupada had to tolerate a lot when his movement developed in New York, because nobody knew anything. When we come to ISKCON, we learn things. There is an established temple. There is devotees with experience. We are taught so many things, but these people just came from the streets. Some were even crazy. They had LSD psychosis and all kinds of flipping outs. So it was not easy for him, an older gentleman from Calcutta, who has always lived like a gentleman, to see what was going on in New York. But he tolerated everything because he saw that he saw this spark of devotion in the heart of these devotees, of these people, maybe I should say. So Srila Prabhupada, then he founded ISKCON, and he started to give initiations. And actually, one thing which is very interesting with Srila Prabhupada is that in spite of he being so much elder than his disciples, he would do many things, like he would clean the temple himself, because these people have no real idea of cleanliness, how a temple must be cleaned. So Srila Prabhupada did it himself. He cooked the Sunday feasts. He did all kinds of these menial services, which shows that Srila Prabhupada was an extremely humble person. There is actually, I don't know if it's I think it's in a video, but it's like Srila Prabhupada arrives in one airport in New York, and at that time ISKCON is already very big. The temples already have 100 devotees and more, and everybody is in the airport waiting for Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada arrives, and there is all these devotees in the kirtan, and there is one person who is in charge of probably crowd control. He says, "All devotees to the right," and Srila Prabhupada also goes to the right. But actually was saying, the other devotees, his Prabhupada's disciples, should go to the right so Prabhupada could go by. Srila Prabhupada said, he was so humble, is that he also moved to the right. He didn't understand that they were actually opening a place for him. It's very, very nice video. So Srila Prabhupada always kept this humility. Like even later when ISKCON became very big, Srila Prabhupada was always thinking, I'm just serving my spiritual master. There's nothing special with me. what I'm saying. I'm repeating his words, and I'm fulfilling his desire. And this is a very deep quality of a great devotee, and especially a personality with such a, Srila Prabhupada, so to say. He, in the later days of ISKCON, there was a lot of facilities, a lot of money, millions of books distributed, but Srila Prabhupada never changed this schedule. It's not that he became, he started to live an opulent lifestyle, or he started to take advantage that there was a lot of money. No, he always ate very simple, many times khichdi and dal, and slept very little. These books, because Srila Prabhupada was engaging during the day always, so many of these books are translated at night. He used to get up at 2 o'clock, and like between 2 and 4 or 5, he would translate these books with a tape recorder. He would record the purports and the translation. So extreme humility, and finally, because of all his struggle and his humility and his dedication to Krishna, he created this wonderful movement, Hare Krishna movement. And by his mercy, we are all sitting here. And our life, sometimes I start, I see friends of mine who are not devotees. I actually admire them. How can they continue to exist? Because their life has no meaning. Okay, you get a good job, you get some money, but all you have to look at, if you don't believe in God, is death, actually. At least for me it feels like that. What? Okay, you can go from moment to moment. Okay, you get, I get a new apartment, you're very enthusiastic. Now I decorate the apartment, I'm very enthusiastic. Now I found a wife, I'm very enthusiastic. Now I divorce, I'm very depressed. I find a new wife, new apartment, sell the old apartment. It's just, and finally, even without noticing, all the years have passed. They're 65, 70, they go into retirement, old age home. So we are extremely fortunate, because by being engaged in devotional service, first of all, we overcome the duality of past, present, and future. Because when we serve Krishna, it's an eternal present, it's free from anxiety. Why do we have worries? Why are we sad? Somebody knows? Because we...
Because the mind goes in the past.
Exactly. Because we think about the past. And why are we in anxiety? Exactly. So when one performs devotional service, one is always connected to Krishna, and therefore one's mind becomes peaceful. No worries. Theoretically, at least, it's like that. But it's a lifelong lesson to learn about that. So I think I have spoken long enough. Thank you very much for coming here. So if you have the possibility, there is a very nice temple here, and if you can somehow support with any service or anything, please do this. Support devotees here. They're trying to make this knowledge available to the whole Stockholm, and try to read Srila Prabhupada's books, and also, if possible, also chanting. But it's okay to start with reading. You can start with reading and chanting. It's the same process. Shravanam, listening. Okay? Shall we finish here, Rajavati? Thank you.
You can continue if you like, but it's...
No, one should be reasonable. So if there is any questions or comments you want to make, you are all welcome. Yeah.
Really comment about this physical books, real books.
Yeah, physical books.
And physical and e-books. One ISKCON lecturer, he was speaking about this with physical books. It's Pope,
Yeah, who was
Krishna Swami.
Okay.
He said that it might come times when the political situation is very unstable, and because of all this, what is viral, it can be taken control over, and the literature and the information, everything can actually get lost. But the physical books, they're at home, they're standing on your bookshelf, they're with you, you know. I found that was really far out.
I mean, there are several utopias about these books. There is this Fahrenheit, what is it called? Fahrenheit 490 something, no? Somebody remembers this? I think Fahrenheit, which is how the English-speaking people calculate degrees. They don't have Celsius, they have Fahrenheit, 490. And this is it's a government, country or a society where it's not allowed to have books. So, and they report each other. So when somebody has a book, you call this, and they come with something which like the fire department. But they don't bring water, they bring fire. And they put all the books in a pile and burn them. One thing which is interesting, Amazon started with something which is called, I think it's called Kindle, no?
Yeah,
Kindle, yeah. So when Amazon started with Kindle, in the beginning it was a little wild. It was not regulated, and the books were not protected and so on. So some people noticed that they were reading a book and the book disappeared. You know, next day they would go on the screen, or you know, where they have purchased the book, and it wasn't there. And then they started a little forum where they're discussing, you know, oh, this also happened to me, you know, like forums are. People describe what happened to them. And interesting enough, the book which they had removed, it was 1984. This was one of the first Kindle experiences. So this already happened. And they tried to introduce enormous censorship everywhere. You know, now maybe you cannot say certain words with a racistic tone or discriminating, but they could easily introduce God. You know, there is already, I know in certain countries, there is people who say that, I mean, like in England, they don't want to commemorate Christmas because it may offend the Muslims. I mean, it's just starting this. And it would not surprise me if they say you cannot write God because you will offend the atheists. So books are real. Anything else? Yeah, check it please.
There's also a comment on...
Vent microphone?
No, that's fine. That when you read every time Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, then you find something new. But you can find even more new things when you prepare yourself for a lecture.
Exactly.
Yeah, then you think like deeply on every like sentence. Quite nice experience.
Absolutely. You give lectures here?
Could be more often.
Najavati, where are you?
Anyway, we'll figure things out.
So Ashoka Krishna should give maybe lectures here.
Yeah.
More.
I'm sorry, I did not hear you when you said.
Oh, that's fine. We'll figure
Anyway.
things out.
I'm just harassing you.
I see.
Okay. So, Udarani?
Yeah, it was talk about LSD here
Yeah.
in some part of your very nice lecture. It just came to my mind. One hippie happy, he was asking Srila Prabhupada in that old days that how is that happiness in the spiritual world, and how is it? Can we give some? And Srila Prabhupada, he said, because he knew his audience, he said it's like an ocean of LSD.
There is a nice description in Brahma Samhita. How is it? Every step is a dance, and every word is a song. The rivers are alive. One thing which I always thought it's funny, in all cultures, in the old stories, people speak with animals, isn't it? You go in the forest, fox, why do you want to eat me? And the fox says, because I'm very hungry. And the girl will say something. There is this communication between human and animals. And I mean, this reminds me a little bit like in the spiritual world, where everything is alive. You can communicate with a tree. The tree will relate with you. So everything is personal and alive.
There is one guy he's doing sometimes on YouTube. That he's teaching how you can communicate with animals.
With animals.
I think his vignette, his picture there, is he's talking with some horse who is laying down, or is it a cow? No, I think it's a horse. And but it was not my subject. I didn't get into it. But it's there. Some people have this idea.
In the spiritual world, it's said that all the trees, for instance, they are desire trees. So you don't go to Ika or Coop, you go to desire tree, and it said, I need one mango, aubergine. I don't know if they give potatoes, but
2 packs of milk. 2 packs of milk.
For milk, you go to the Surabi cow. And then you take all these ingredients and use them for the service of Krishna. And also in the spiritual world, everybody is taking care of themselves, of each other. I mean, I don't have to think about myself, because everybody is thinking, how shall Lochan eat? And I am thinking, how shall you eat? And in this way we always take care of each other, and there is no need of being egoistic. So it's a very wonderful world. Spiritual world, and everybody is engaging in the service of Krishna. Okay?
Haribol.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Vyasapuja ki.
Jai.
All glories to Shri Guru and Garanga.
Jai.
One thing, it's not good to praise somebody in front of the deity. This is said in Nectar of Devotion. No, Nectar of Devotion is said you should not praise anybody in front of the deity. And actually, in our Namahato,
Why?
who asked?
What is the principle?
The principle is that this is the temple room. This is the place where Krishna is in the center, and therefore it's a little impolite to put somebody in the center. But what we do actually in Namahato is say, let's chant Hare Krishna 3 times for Lochan. So we say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
You are well trained, I can hear. Jai, thank you very much.